I become the best version of me, raised by certain degrees. They say I'm blurting disease, cause I spit anti-establishment. This is battleship, I'm calling your number and letter, and I only do it to make you better. Negative mindsets just won't let up, and I'm constantly battling my predecessors, cause I get too fed up. But a scene when a scene brings pain, locks and chains, reduce the potential of human brains. I'm too insane, at least it's what they label me. I'd rather be labeled as crazy than stuck in the matrix. I got angels chasing cause I'm making these statements. I'm participating in the emancipation of a nation under interrogation. See my determination as you turn in these pages. I will never ever be degraded. They want me to dumb it down. They say the industry ain't ready for too pure of a sound, for too pure of a heart, for too much empathy. I will give it all till I empty me. This is my manifest destiny. Preferably dropping bombs over melodies. You feel it heavily, you're telling me. Watch out. But it brings a resistance. Please don't miss this. Consequence vicious. We need to destroy the traumas. Go back and heal for a better tomorrow. Face the pain that you want to avoid. Stick out your chest and raise up your voice. I will not bend. I will not break. Stand in my place and I won't be swayed. Mark my words, lives will be saved. And even after I die, my legacy will remain. My emotions run amok, I'm out of luck. What the flying flip is going on? I say I'm a king, but I'm showing porn. My logic feels intoxicated. No love left cause my heart's been raided. Feeling jaded, want me medicated. Feeling like a fish cause I'm hooked and baited. And I can't find peace. I become my own worst enemy. Sipping Hennessy, feeling dead in me. If my pain were a woman, gotta let her free. Let it go. But she's holding on with a grip of death. With a grip of death. The pain gets worse with every breath. I just wanna keep you in the dark so low. You feel it in your soul. Never see the light of day. You say, yeah, I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I don't like who I become. What have I done? I'm going numb, ain't having fun. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. Crazy is as crazy does. I catch myself trying to flirt with Lady Luck, but she just curves me. I'm worried, vision's blurry, feeling like death's coming early. You never get rid of me, even when you say that you're getting sick of me. Painted so vividly, making you sickening, feeling with misery, burning like Listerine. I spit on your grave, I'm taking control until you misbehave. The pain comes in waves, today I'm a slave. A trophy to gain, I'll put you on display. And laugh at your misfortune, laughing at your tears pouring, laughing at attempts of ignoring. Pieces foreign, the more you fight, the more you let me more in. This can't be life. Doc, help me out, I can no longer fight. I'm crying uncontrollably, I need a hold of me. What's life supposed to be? And I'm feeling suicidal. All my rivals got me quitting on survival. My heart needs to mend. I don't wanna kill myself, just want the pain to end. But this feels like an uphill battle. I see your misery with a broken paddle. I've journaled, have addictions. There's a hole in me cause something's missing. I'm in prison, in my mind. Gotta hear what's been left behind. EMDR, whatever it takes. If I don't see change, I swear I'm gonna break. I just wanna keep you in the dark so low. You feel it in your soul. Never see the light of day. You say, yeah, I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I don't like who I become. What have I done? I'm going numb, ain't having fun. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. I think I'm going crazy, 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 crazy. Keep hope alive. 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 Watch you do my work. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my work. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, revel in it. Watch you do my work. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my work. Cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm worth it. Watch you do my work. Watch you working harder than the evidence. Spitting for the hearts of people that feeling irrelevant. Spitting for the hell of it, embracing all the elements. Music, having content that'll challenge your intelligence. This ain't for the faint to the heart. Mature folks thinking that I'm way too smart. Too mature for my age, wanna put me in the grave, but no need a safe face, cause I'm running my race. Running my race, even overweight. But you see me overweight, cause I'm stealing off your plate. And I'm feeling so great, even though I make mistakes. Do whatever it takes to make winning the Mason race. But you would never bury me. Talking bad about the man is like kerosene. Or solid kerosene, apparently my words are like therapy. Watch you do my work. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my work. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, revel in it. Watch you do my work. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my work. Cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm worth it. Watch you do my work. I don't look like a rapper, what they look like, what they sound like, why they sound bite. I'm too busy cruising in my lane, I don't need to buy fame, and this is why I came to put it work in the hearts of man. There's nothing harder than I like a martyr can. Watch you do my work, watch you do it well. Been through hell and I'm telling a story that's so compelling. It's got me screaming and yelling, negativism repelling, and ain't no dreams I'm selling, cause I guess I know I'm rebelling. I work hard, you can tell, full of heart, raise a hell, cause you're gonna see me rock the scene like prophecy on a lock and key. It's gotta be something to write home about, cause I work with pride, I got a fire inside. Watch you do my work. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my work. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, revel in it. Watch you do my work. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my work. Cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm worth it. Watch you do my work. Work, work, work. Watch you do my work. Work, work. Watch you put in that work, work, work. Watch you do my in that work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you do my work. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my work. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, revel in it. Watch you do my work. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my work. Cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm worth it. Watch you do my work. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my work. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, revel in it. Watch you do my work. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my work. Cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm worth it. Watch you do my work. Work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that. We have a problem. Uh-oh, there's a problem in the industry. You probably didn't think too many people would be into me. You want carbon copies? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint. It's a breaking point. Words so absurd that I'm breaking joints. Who's this brother in a suit jacket think he is? Don't he know that rappers ain't taking this serious? It's all hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my work. Cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm worth it. Watch you do my work. Work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you do my work. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my work. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, revel in it. Watch me do my work. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch me do my work, cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm working. Watch you do my work. Working hard to achieve my dreams, it's harder than it seems. Watch you do my work. Sky's the limit, gotta hit it till you fit it, reveling it. Watch you do my work. Hungry for change to have my name known, cause I say so while the days go. Watch you do my work, cause I stand for a purpose. Watch you work this, cause I'm working. Watch you do my work. Work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that work, work, work. Watch you do my work, work, work. Watch you put in that. We have a problem. Uh-oh, there's a problem in the industry. You probably didn't think too many people would be into me. You want carbon copies? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint. It's a breaking point. Words so absurd that I'm breaking joints. Who's this brother in a suit jacket think he is? Don't he know that rappers are taking this serious? It's all about making hits, lyrics set aside, humility. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else. So happy to have you guys here. Welcome to Therapy Thursdays. This is the first time we are broadcasting on YouTube. So please forgive us if we have some technical difficulties. But I'm really excited. This is different from the Instagram platform. I like the Instagram platform at first because of the live Q&A portion. Like people are actually able to message live with the therapist on. But there was technical stuff. It was difficult. Not every therapist even had an Instagram account. So the platform was a little limiting. So I thought, let's bring it to YouTube. I feel like YouTube has the bigger reach and got some cool software to be able to broadcast. So here we are. So welcome to Therapy Thursdays, where we bring the therapist to you. I am your host, Marcus Alexander Velasquez, and I'm so happy that you're here with us today. I'm excited for today's topic, and our guest today is a recurring guest. She has been on the show several times, and she will be on the show many times after today as well. So we're very happy to have her with us. Before we get into it, I am going to show our disclaimer. All right, this show is for informational purposes only. You are completely responsible for what you do with the information presented, and myself and all of our guests cannot be held liable for any misuse or misunderstanding of the information presented. Please always consult a trained mental health professional before making any decisions regarding treatment of yourself and others. Awesome. So I'm going to bring our guest therapist on, and we're going to bring Ro to the stream right now.
Oh, hello.
Hello, Ro. How are you?
I'm good. I can't see you. Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Well, that's
Great
good.
to have you here. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks. It's good to be here, even though the heat is abominable, but
Yes.
we're here in Chicago, so that's good.
Yes.
Hello, folks. Tonight I'm talking about abandonment issues.
Yeah, so we're going to get into that. For those who maybe haven't watched the previous episode, Ro, and aren't familiar with you, if you can please give us a little bit background on, well, there goes the technical difficulties. We just lost Ro. So
hopefully she comes back online in the meantime. Therapy Thursdays is an awesome resource because a lot of people know about therapy, but they don't necessarily know the ins and outs of therapy. Oh, she came back. Here we go.
Here I am. I'm a licensed clinical social worker with many decades of service and practice. I have a private practice in Lakeview and have worked on the International Council of Alcoholism and Addiction in Switzerland. And I'm here to be of help and to help anyone who's wants to learn. Can't do your therapy, but I can teach you.
That's right. Awesome. Ro, I always want to know what initially piqued your interest into becoming a therapist.
My mother was depressed. So you know, most therapists have something in their background that they want to uncover and deal with. And once they get into doing that, it's like, wow, this is terrific. I can't believe people aren't lining up in droves.
Wow. Awesome. Cool.
Okay.
Well, yeah, today we're going to be talking about abandonment. This is an interesting topic. This is actually one, I was never like officially diagnosed with this, or even know if you can be diagnosed with it, but like I looked at the symptoms of abandonment before, and I feel like I may have had some myself. Unfortunately, my biological father was not in my life. However, I was legally adopted by my father, who's wonderful. His name is George. He is my hero. But I understand some of the symptoms of abandonment. So me personally, I'm interested in this topic because I want to learn more, obviously, from a professional like yourself. So yeah, so again, this is live on YouTube. One of the cool things about this platform of Therapy Thursdays is we have a Q&A section at the end of the show. The last half an hour or so, we open up to Q&A. So I have plenty of questions to ask our guest therapist, but if you have any questions, either on the topic at hand today on abandonment or anything mental health or therapy related, please type it into the chat because we would love to get to your questions and answer them to the best of our abilities. So I'm going to play around with this software, Ro, because now I can actually place the questions.
Good.
Yeah. So I sent you the questions before, so we'll get into those. But yeah, so first and foremost, if you can please define abandonment for us.
Well, abandonment issues are you get ghosted, so to speak. That usually starts in the first 3 years of life, a mother and child who are separated due to illness, death, whatever. A child is left feeling abandoned because they don't know why mom went away. Or it could be whoever the caretaker is, if that's the dad or the grandparent or whomever. But it leaves a hole in the heart, so to speak. And it leaves people feeling insecure and unsteady sometimes, emotionally. So, and also leads to depression. It's called anaclitic depression, depression from not having bonded properly.
Wow.
Did I talk about bonding? No, I haven't.
No. We'll definitely get to that.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that definition. Next up is, what are the biggest contributors to developing abandonment issues?
Separation and loss.
Okay, any types of specific separation?
Yeah, when I was in graduate school, they showed a film of a 2-year-old's mother goes into the hospital for 10 days, and nobody comforted this child who developed borderline personality later. Wow. Because separation, if you have a good substitute caretaker, it's certainly much better.
Wow. That's very interesting. So you said, what were the two things? You said loss and separation?
Grieving.
Loss
and grieving. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Separation and that, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, if you could please define and then provide examples of emotional abandonment, because some of my research on this topic brought me to several types of abandonment, one of them being emotional abandonment. So can you talk a little bit about emotional abandonment?
Well, there's obviously physical abandonment. The person leaves for whatever reason. There's also, and the after effect of that is emotional abandonment. A child who has a mother who's depressed, he gets abandoned emotionally. And that is very difficult, even more difficult. It depends on who the caretaker is. But especially in the first 3 years of life, it is very difficult for a child to develop a solid sense of self. In fact, what happens is they're empty of themselves, because when a baby is bonding with a mother, it's sort of like they become one being in the first year of life.
Wow.
And the child absorbs that, so to speak. And then at 18 months, the child says, "Oh, mom isn't here." But then a picture of mom will come up in their head. And then at 36 months, they don't even get the picture. Mom's just in their head. And so they don't feel abandoned.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So when I hear emotional abandonment, I also think too of like parents being physically present, but
But
not
not there.
emotionally present. Right. So their emotions essentially are abandoned, meaning they don't get the love and support that every child needs growing up. Would that fit under the title of emotional abandonment?
Absolutely. I have a man I'm working with currently, and his parents were just never, nice house, no one home. And he just grew up feeling empty.
Wow.
Yeah. Very
Wow.
damaging.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked a little bit. I think you mentioned attachment, but I definitely want to get into that one next. I know that abandonment can lead to insecure attachment. So, one, if you can define for us what insecure attachment is, and then if you could provide some examples of it too.
Well, it's always living in fear, whether it's conscious or unconscious, that you're going to be left. You're not good enough. See, mom left me. Why wouldn't, why are you going to love me? You don't trust. The lack of basic trust. Basic trust is what you get from good maternal parenting and paternal parenting, especially in the first 3 years of life. But if you don't get that, you have a big hole in your heart, which leads to feeling insecure and no one want me. She's my boyfriend or girlfriend. They're going to go away and leave me too. That's the unconscious message that they got.
Wow. And I know too, sometimes that behavior can actually turn into a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? They're afraid that somebody's going to leave them, so they kind of treat
They
them in a
set it
way.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, they set themselves up for failure, so they're worried about someone leaving, so therefore they don't fully give themselves into the person.
Right. They hold back
The person,
because
right?
they don't trust.
Correct. And then their actions end up making that fear come to reality.
Yeah, that's called it's called repetition compulsion. You repeat the wound in an attempt. This time I'm going to master it rather than just skipping the wound and going to a bit gooder outcome.
What was that term again?
What did I say? Repetition compulsion. Freud thought of that. Clever fellow.
Wow, I like that. Repetition compulsion.
Yeah, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome.
Absolutely. Yes, I'm very familiar with that definition and how true it is.
And it's so true.
Yeah, and I've definitely I've seen people with insecure attachments just in life. People
Sure.
that I've come in contact with, and I'm sure our viewers have had somebody that they know, if not they themselves, have had developed insecure attachment. So it's very interesting, and I'm sure it's much more common than we actually.
Yeah, well, that's why there's Codependents Anonymous, which is codependents are people who have to get a relationship to live off of, so to speak, because they don't have the internal wherewithal to stand independently.
Wow. I've heard of all these. I've heard of so many groups, the Alcoholics Anonymous or Readers Anonymous, but there are lots of groups for a lot of different issues, like what you just said. Codependents Anonymous. That's amazing. I didn't even know that existed.
CODIS, yeah, Codependents Anonymous. There's also ACA, Adult Children, used to be of alcoholics, but it's adult children of blanked up families.
Of blanked up families?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, they were not attempting to be PC with that title.
No, not at all.
Nice. Yeah, so when I was looking up abandonment, I saw that there were links to anxiety as well. So if you can let us know, how does abandonment tie into anxiety?
Well, if you're unconsciously fearful that your husband, wife, whomever is going to dump you like mom did or dad did, then you unconsciously A, try to set it up, and or B, just get decimated if it happens. I know of someone whose mother had passed away when the person was 3 years old. And when the person was in their 20s, broken up to with a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, And he went into the kitchen, pulled out a knife, and ended his life.
Wow.
And it was when I said, you know, he just can't handle being abandoned again. The pain is so excruciating. Anxiety and abandonment. Well, if you don't trust, which is what happens when you've been abandoned, then you're always worried that it's going to happen, and then you kind of make it happen. And so, in terms of anxiety, it also ties in with our biochemistry, which is, fight or flight, adrenaline. And when people get anxious, maybe they don't know why. Maybe they're just sort of out of the, seems to be out of the blue, but they get heightened anxiety, which is a neurological effect of the biochemical expression of the emotion of fear of abandonment.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I hope it wasn't too much.
No. That's fine. That's, again, one of the purposes of this show is we want to know the technical terms for it. But remember, too, I've said this several times that I want to bridge between theory and practice, so we can talk about the ideal life and how we should, deal with things. But then, practically speaking, that's a different story. So we can have these clinical trials that are perfect in the perfect circumstances, but real life, clearly, as we know,
very different.
Yeah. So I definitely want to take the technicality of therapy, but through the lens of this show, talk about how we can implement it practically.
Okay.
So thank you. Yeah, and I guess that makes a lot of sense, because if you've been abandoned before and you're worried about it happening again, that's anxiety. You get anxious about it. You're worried about it happening all the time.
Repetition compulsion. Oh, here it comes again. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Because it's devastating to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I worked at the adolescent psychiatry program at Northwestern University Medical Center. And in the adolescent program, 60% of our patients, teenage patients, were either adopted who didn't bond well or incubator babies.
Wow.
Because they didn't bond properly.
Wow. That's interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What's the ideal bonding process look like?
Well, the baby would either be breastfed or bottle fed by the mother, with her having the baby lying on her chest. And the physical bonding is incredible. When a mother and a newborn are together, I saw one today. It was kind of really beautiful. But the mother and the baby almost melt into each other.
Wow.
They almost become one.
Wow.
And the baby doesn't know the difference between me and her, not me. Because they have to get, you've heard of stranger anxiety?
I've not.
No? About 8 or 9 months, babies get scared of other people than mother. And it's called stranger anxiety, because for the first time they realize, I'm not a part of her. Who are these other people? Where do they come from? Because the baby is in what's called an autistic phase, where he's the center of the universe. He cries, someone brings a bottle, if in a good home. And if he needs his diaper changed, someone comes and does it.
Wow.
So he assumes that he's the ultimate king baby or queen baby.
That's interesting, because when you were saying that made me think of like self-awareness, or more awareness. Like the baby's more aware of more people exist than just my mom. That's interesting. I don't know what the research is about, like when we become.
I did a master's thesis on it.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
Wow. Please do tell.
On attachment theory, that if a child does not attach, i.e. they're abandoned, basically, sometimes, like they used to refer to refrigerator mothers, women who were so cold, they'd be present physically, but they were not, nice house, no one home.
Wow.
And the child would grow up empty of themselves and develop psychiatric problems.
Wow. Interesting.
Pretty amazing.
You're a wealth of knowledge.
Thanks. Took many years to accumulate it. Glad to share it.
Yes, we appreciate it. So talking about abandonment, what are some ways that we can recognize, not only in others, but in ourselves too? So I want to focus on two perspectives. What are some signs of abandonment issues in children? And then if you can tell us some abandonment issues in adults. And what
In children, bedwetting is usually a sign of having been abandoned.
Interesting.
Yeah, and yeah, so that's one of the things people look for. Night terrors. Now, kids have them occasionally, but if they have them pretty consistently, that's awful. If the kid cannot tolerate being alone, like in their room, in their crib, in whatever. In fact, I knew somebody who had an 18-month-old baby daughter, and he would time how long she cried. For if it was up to 5 minutes, he would get up and soothe her. And if she could soothe herself within 5 minutes, she was learning how to do it and take care of herself.
Wow.
Hmm.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
good parenting.
And what are some signs of abandonment issues in adults?
Well, insecurity, abandonment issues, serial polygamy. One after another. They can't tolerate being alone. They have great anxiety internally. They're empty of themselves. They don't have internal wherewithal. I mean, some people are just strong,
Mhm.
and that's when they have good parenting. The baby I was just telling you about now is in Hollywood making a fortune.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that pops up in adulthood that can reflect someone dealing
Sure.
with abandonment?
Divorce, breakups. The one I told you about, the young man who ended his life when he got broken up with, because it went literally to the core, to his heart, where he was bonded with his mother.
Wow.
And maybe he didn't deal with that earlier in his life in terms of therapy or anything. I don't think he did, but devastating.
Wow. Yeah, that is devastating.
A lot of people who have abandonment are oftentimes feel suicidal because they live in a black hole, and maybe they have a great facade for the world. They get out and they do their job and they're smiling and all that, but inside they're just empty and lonely, and they feel like. Have you ever read The Bell Jar?
I'm not.
You should read it. It's by Sylvia Plath, who ultimately offed herself, unfortunately.
Wow.
Yeah, but it really talks about depression in a way that is very understandable. She called the book The Bell Jar because she was isolated. She'd been abandoned in childhood. And under a bell jar, you can't get out. You can't connect with people. You can't touch, and you're just alone in prison.
Hmm.
And that's the bell jar.
Wow. Very interesting. All right. Well, we know that a lot of abandonment stems from childhood. So if there are any parents watching, caring parents, good parents that don't want their children to develop abandonment issues, how can parents prevent their children from developing abandonment issues?
Well, if one of the parents has to leave for one reason, say one has to go in the hospital, they make sure that there's a caregiver for the child that the child knows, if possible, and someone who will nurture the child and don't let them get over frustrated. And like the guy who timed 5 minutes, and more than 5 minutes was too much frustration. So someone who's empathic, someone who's a good mom substitute, maybe a grandma, someone like that, or an older sister, or, well, that probably wouldn't work because they'd be a baby themselves almost. But and it can be a man, can be an uncle, can be whoever's going to be kind and loving and attentive to the baby.
Awesome. And then we talked about emotional abandonment. So to counteract that, parents want to make sure that, of course, they are, doting of their kids to a point. Obviously, we don't want to do it, but
right,
making sure that they feel safe, loved, encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Absolutely. You hit all the major checkpoints.
Oh, awesome. Didn't even plan on that.
Yeah, it was well done.
Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, I know, at least for me, when I did research on this topic, like when I hear abandonment, I usually think of a parent leaving because
Right.
they, whatever, they're not getting along with their spouse, or they're not ready to be a
Or
parent.
they get deployed to Afghanistan or somewhere.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
I've often wondered about mothers of babies who are in the service and then they get deployed for a year when they have children under 5. I don't think it's wise to do, truthfully, but things happen.
Wow.
And they have to find a substitute who, will never replace mom. You can have video chat from here to heck and gone, but it will never replace mom, especially
Agreed.
for a younger one, pre-verbal.
Yeah, that makes
Sorry,
sense.
I just screwed this up. Hold on.
No, you're good. Careful. I don't want you to exit again.
I don't either. I don't know how to get back in. Let's see.
Oh, I
Oh,
can
there,
see.
there I am. I got
All
back. I have a new computer thing. So
All right, no worries. But yeah, so when I was doing research on this topic, like I said, I thought about people physically leaving, or like you said, a parent going off into the service. But I didn't even think about it that a child can feel abandoned based on a death.
absolutely.
Death of someone close. So I'd like to learn more about that. So I want to know, how can the death of a loved one affect a child and lead to abandonment issues?
Well, they have been abandoned.
Mm,
So they know the grief of, not consciously if they're pre-verbal, but they know the pain of where's mom? Who are these other people? And it's not conscious, but it's in their heart or their psyche of their heart.
mm,
And how can you be? What you do is, should there be that kind of thing, you have caregivers in that the child can feel comfortable with, hopefully someone he knows, and someone who can be in their life pretty consistently, well, actually consistently until the parent returns. If the parent's not going to return, well, that brings up a whole nother thing. Most people from divorced families want to marry someone who's not from a divorced family, because at least someone knows the rules,
mm.
and they feel insecure about themselves. They tend to marry later. That's the grieving thing. They don't trust that the world can be a good place and people won't leave. Children also grieve differently than adults. Adults, they go to the funeral, they cry, and it takes a while, like more than a year. And maybe someone said, say that after 3 years. It takes a long time to grieve, like a mother or a very specific person in your life,
Yeah,
special person. We all have had that, haven't we?
absolutely.
Yeah. So, but children grieve differently, and children need to have support. And if there's a school counselor, to talk to a school counselor, because children don't talk in therapy, they do play therapy, which is representative of what's going on in their house. Maybe they'll do a drawing and mommy's not in the drawing anymore,
Mm,
or things like that. Or there are dark clouds in the sky, or someone's crying in the picture. So those are how children do it.
wow. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense that children grieve differently than adults. So that your comments made me think of another question that that I hadn't written before. But can an adult experience abandonment issues if they have the death of a loved one as an adult? So of course, whenever it's applicable, I like to share my story.
Sure,
So
go ahead.
actually,
I'm gonna have a
I
sip of
actually
Coke.
I just lost my mom 2 years ago to COVID. It was horrible. Like, I've been through some things, and that was without a doubt the most painful, scary, lonely. It was a horrendous experience that I'm still going through to this day, 2 years later.
Tell me that in 4 years.
Say that again.
Tell me that in 4 years.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because she was the most important person in my life. So for her to be gone now, I'm learning
And
how to live
also
without her.
quickly, she was gone quickly, right?
Yeah, it
COVID.
was yeah, it was unfortunate. So that's my personal experience. But yeah, what can an adult develop abandonment issues as an adult from losing someone close like that?
Well, everybody grieves, which is different than abandonment. If you're married to someone, they pass away, you're going to grieve. That's just how it is. And it takes 1 to 3 years. The first 6 months, I think, are the absolute hardest, but it gets better. And then at a year, it gets easier. And as you get further out, a friend of mine's husband of 59 years died recently. And she kept thinking every time the phone rang that he was going to be on the other end.
Mm, yeah.
So, but if you have good, solid attachment from when you're a child and are secure, it'll hurt, but it won't throw you into despair beyond all recognition.
Wow, that's interesting. We actually have a comment from a viewer. This person said, growing up, my mom was this overprotector because my mom didn't believe I was ready to be social. And now I have social anxiety from time to time, depending who's around. What could that be caused by? So
What
I'm going
about
to comment on.
suffocation? If your mother was a helicopter mother, that could be, she kept you to herself, so to speak. So when you get with strangers or people or new people, you would be anxious because maybe you didn't have that experience titrated slowly, steps away from mother. Mother didn't sound like she wanted to give you up. She wanted to keep you to herself.
Wow. Do you have any advice for this person? Because they said, what could that be caused by? So the social anxiety, do you believe, and obviously this isn't a full therapy session, but I'm just curious, do you believe
Yeah.
that the overprotecting could lead to,
Yes,
have led to the social
because in a way it inhibits the child's growth and experimentation, knowing other people. So in that way, the child and maybe the mother, and I don't know, this is just a guess, the mother transmitted her fear of other people to the child.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, so thank you for the comment. Again, as always, it's called Therapy Thursdays. We would highly suggest that you find a therapist that is equipped to help you in that area. Again, we're a big proponent and supporter of therapy. I've been through therapy on and off about 6-7 years, grown tremendously from it. Ro has had tons of clients that she knows has grown tremendously from it. So thank you for your comment. And if you want to get better, we highly suggest you finding a therapist that'll help you out.
Right.
Yeah. So you hit on this before, but I want to dive a little deeper because it's interesting. We talk a lot about these different forms of abandonment. So we talked about literally just a parent leaving. We talked about a parent getting enlisted in the army. We talked about a parent or someone close to a child dying. So I found another form of abandonment, which is divorce. And I didn't even think about that either, but that makes so much sense. So how does divorce affect a child, and can that lead to abandonment issues?
Well, children grieve differently than adults. And I said earlier that children of divorced families tend to marry someone from an intact family because at least one person knows the rules. And children marry later. They have a lot of self-doubt. Dad left because I didn't eat my green beans. Children always blame themselves when there's a loss. I didn't eat my green beans. That's why mom and dad got divorced and I lost dad. And there's different kinds of way people grieve. For example, if someone passes away that you feel very mixed about, ambivalent about, or maybe you're angry at them, you'll go into deeper despair than someone who passes away that you had a positive thing for. But if you've had a positive thing that's really, really good, you're just going to ache, which is different than grieving. Well, not really. It's different than depression. It's a normal facility or normal course of life, and that you're supposed to get through it, and takes a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the better the relationship, the easier the grieving.
That's interesting. Wow. Yeah, I'm just noticing this trend. And again, this is why I love hosting this show, because I get to learn so much. But
Good.
I'm just noticing the trend of different avenues of abandonment. It's just a separation of a relationship that is vital to a person. So it's usually parents, but it can be anyone that's close to a child.
That's right.
Like I understand definitely that the abandonment issues stem from childhood, but how often or how likely is it to develop abandonment issues as an adult, or is it just primarily from childhood events?
Mostly from childhood events, although people occasionally have them, they're in a terrible thing and everyone in their family dies, or, you know, and they're adults, but that could put you over the edge.
Mm, awesome. I responded to the person's comment saying that we hope it answered their question, and they wrote back and they said, yes, it did. Thank you. So awesome.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Again, it's my favorite part of the show, being able to answer questions live. I think it's wonderful.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So if anyone else who's watching has any questions or comments, please type it into the chat. We will be answering questions until 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. So please keep them coming. In the meantime, so for those who have abandonment issues, whether they know it or not, can you talk to us about some unhealthy ways of coping with abandonment?
Drugs, sex, rock and roll, depression, delinquency, drugs, computer obsession, porn, people, and serial polygamy, one after another, codependence. People, they get abandoned and they live with chronic fear.
Wow. Wow. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And especially if abandonment ties into anxiety, like we talked about before.
Absolutely, it does.
There's tons of unhealthy ways of dealing with anxiety too.
Right.
Which would also apply to the abandonment. Yeah.
So they're related.
Say that again.
They're related.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a related family I want nothing to do with. So we talked about unhealthy ways of coping. So of course, let's flip the script and talk about the other side of the coin. So what are some healthy ways of coping with abandonment? Well,
get a good therapist who's empathic. They got to be empathic, not these CBDs, which are, cognitive behavioral, in and out in 5 sessions. No, it takes a long time to fill in the holes, but it is possible to fill in the holes in your heart. Now, is it as good as you should have gotten it the first time? No. Is it good enough? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point you made. Is we want to entice people to go to therapy and let them know what a great tool it is, but we also want to present therapy in a very realistic light. So what you did was great, because for those who've never attended therapy before, it's great to, we don't want to set them up for failure. So it's great that it's great that you said that depending on the issue at hand, depending on your experiences, therapy can take a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's good to at least get prepared for that. So if someone's brand new to therapy, at least you come to it with the mindset of knowing I'm here for battle, and it's going to take a while. Because if somebody comes in with preconceived notions that, like you said, 5 sessions and I'll be done and I'm good to go, that's just not reality.
Also, like managed care, the insurance industries, United Healthcare is really pretty bad with that one, but that's just my opinion. But they, limit, you had 5 sessions, what do you want? And then they want to know the person's shoe size, tell me every detail of their life before we give you 5 more sessions. And I think that's very invasive.
Wow. Do you think the way things are going with more mental health awareness nowadays, that insurances are jumping on board and adjusting their policies accordingly?
No, they're getting stricter because they have more. Yeah, they're getting more clients, more people who are requesting insurance to pay for it. So they have to figure out a way to, make it I can't say the word, efficacious, to make the most out of get most bang for their buck, mentally speaking. A lot of people go for these DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, which is your brain talking to another part of your brain, and CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And some of that can be helpful with things, but it doesn't deal with the real big issues. Superficial things, yes.
Wow. That's interesting. So, like, in your experience and based on your clientele, are you able to give us like an average of like the shortest amount of time you've seen someone in therapy as opposed to the longest time?
Sure. I know somebody for 20 years, but they don't come in regularly anymore. But shortest time is to get better, at least 3 months, at least, and usually 1 year to 2.
Wow, that's a good time frame to know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Doesn't happen overnight.
It does not happen overnight. Absolutely. If anyone has any comments or questions, please type it in the chat. We would be honored to answer them for you. In the meantime, we will continue on with our questions. So I'd like to know, Ro, if abandonment issues can be so severe that they require medication.
They also may require hospitalization.
Ooh, talk to me about that.
Yeah, because if it goes very deep, which generally it does, if it's from the first 3 years of life, usually people come in with major depression, which responds to medication and ongoing therapy. And some become suicidal, homicidal. In the old days, back when I was young, insurance would pay for, if you want to be in the hospital a year and everybody says it's okay, then they'll pay. Now it's like you're in and out, spin dry, you're in and out. 3 days is a long hospitalization now.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but some people need it. And if the crack in their Liberty Bell, so to speak, or their internal heart, is so deep, they might need hospitalization, because there's therapy is wonderful, but it gets worse before it gets better. You have to open up the wound and feel it and grieve it and cry and whatever, and then you'll eventually move on. But you open up the wound, and that's hard. That's hard.
It's great. Another reality of therapy, that things do get worse before they get better.
True. But you have the therapist there to support you, hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. And on that point too, I always want to mention that therapists are people too, which means that they're imperfect. They can make mistakes, and it may take a few tries before you find a therapist that you groove with, that you gel with. Because even for me personally, when I started therapy, I had a great introduction to my first therapist, but after a while, there was this disconnect. He diagnosed me as having something that I knew to my core I didn't have.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, and then, but honestly, that caused me to seek out a second therapist.
Good.
And that therapist was absolutely phenomenal. I love that man to this day. He's helped me so much, and we've seen each other so often. But again, we want to show therapy in a real light. So just because you go find a therapist, it's not going to be it's not always a beautiful process right from the beginning. You may not gel with the person. It may not work. So you may have to try a second therapist. You may have to try a third therapist. But keep going. It's a beautiful process. And don't write off therapy completely if you have one bad experience, because that's not how every
It took me a very long time to find the right person. And it was after that, everything just gelled.
How long did it take you?
You don't want to know, or I don't want to tell. A long time.
All right, we'll leave it at that. But was it worth fighting for that long?
Yes, exactly. He filled the hole in my heart.
There you go. Awesome. That was beautiful. So how can we support an adult with abandonment issues?
Well, encourage them to go to ACA or Codependence Anonymous. Encourage them to be in therapy. There's, the programs like CODA and ACA are about supporting each other. Now, they're not going to be your mommy or your daddy or your therapist, but if you're feeling stressed out, you'll have a calling network, people you can call. And when you feel abandonment and intense anxiety, that's what helps.
Okay, that makes sense. So same question, but how can we support a child with abandonment issues?
Lovingly. And just make sure they feel, whenever they're with you, that they feel secure, and that you're doing things to be empathic to them and that kind of thing.
Okay. Can you love the abandonment out of a child?
Theoretically, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, but it helps if you can love it. Yeah. I think that's how people get well. Like you said your biological father flew the coop or something, was not there, but you had a stepfather who came in and became your real father, and that healed, I bet, a bunch in you.
That's a good point. It did.
Yeah.
That's great. This one I'm really interested to ask and find out about, because this is this can be dangerous territory. So my next question is, how do we support a spouse with abandonment issues?
That's a toughie, because if they have abandonment issues, you're gonna be their primary person that they don't want to go on a vacation, or we go to work, go out of town for business, or some of them just can't handle being alone. And how you can support a person with a spouse with abandonment issues is encourage them to go to Codependence Anonymous. They call it CODA now, codependence, but it used to be called symbiosis, which is a biological term meaning sort of sucking the life out of the other person, or vice versa.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Any other ways we could support a spouse with abandonment issues? Because I know that one you have to be very careful, because it's your spouse and you don't want to. I know it's often said that one spouse will try to fix the other spouse.
You can't.
Yeah, you can't. So that's why I'm saying, like, what are tactful ways of being able to help a spouse?
The tactful way is to let them feel the discomfort, not all the time, of being alone, and that you keep coming back and you keep showing up, and encourage them to get into therapy, go to these groups that will support them, and hopefully they'll grow and become more self-sustaining. The thing about it is, when people choose partners who want to be rescued, they have an agenda about rescuing. And they have an issue too. They're sort of the codependent.
Codependent.
I just made that up.
You need to trademark that phrase.
I will.
The codependent. You heard it here first on Therapy Thursdays.
That's true.
Our friend from earlier who left a comment is asking another question. I'll throw that up on the screen. The same person's asking, can a person suffer from anxiety after recovering from an illness? Yeah.
I mean, especially if it's a serious illness or something that's derailed a person's life considerably. And it's about fear of dying, fear of bodily harm. And it's very real.
Wow.
There's an anxiousness. My body betrayed me and I got sick. So.
Wow, that's a really good perspective. I never even thought about that. Awesome. Great. I hope that answered your question. If you have any other questions or comments, please throw them in the chat. We would love to. We got a few more minutes left. I actually, upon my research, I found that's what I'm saying. So like you told me about a codependent group?
Codependence Anonymous.
So
CODA.
There's so many of these anonymous groups out there that I wasn't even aware of. So I think that's one of the worst things, is to have help or a tool available, but people don't know it's available. So if it didn't exist, that would be one thing. But for it to exist but not be known by the general public, that can be very disheartening. So when I hear about these resources, I think it's excellent. Especially because there's obviously some things that I don't personally struggle with, but if I come across people who struggle with that,
absolutely,
if we have someone in our audience that's watching and then they struggle with a certain thing, to be able to share those resources with them is phenomenal. So when I was doing research on this topic, I actually came across the perfect website, and I'm throwing it on the screen. There's a website called
Abandonment.net.
Yeah.
Oh, rock on.
Yeah, it was an excellent resource. So if anybody watching would like to learn more about that, please go to that website, because I found some information there. I actually got some of my questions while on the website too for our episode today. And I think it's an excellent resource. So definitely.
Sure sounds like it. I didn't know it was there, but I too will look it up.
There you go. Yep. Abandonment.net. Please check that out. So I thought I feel like the same question can be answered different ways based on someone's perspective.
Sure.
When it comes to, one of the purposes of the show is we want to help people, especially if they're struggling with the issue at hand that we're talking about for this particular episode. Let's say that someone has abandoned their child, but they recognize that you know, they made a mistake, that they shouldn't have done that, and now they want to attempt to right their wrong. So what advice would you have for someone?
Well, it depends how old the child is and when the abandonment occurred. I have a lot of people, they come in and they won't speak to their father because he left the family or he did something or other. And if you can forgive them, because if you're angry at them, it's like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die.
Mm,
So one of the things that is forgive them so that you can be free of it. And if you have a contact with them, good. If not, well, that's how it goes.
yeah.
But you'll find other people in your life, such as you did.
Yeah. So how about the person, that parent that may have abandoned their child, but they realize their mistake and they want to right their wrong?
Well, they should reach out to the child, and the child is or is not ready to see them.
Mm.
And if they reject them, to just once every couple months try.
And if the child wants nothing to do with them, they need to
What can you
respect
do?
them, right?
Well, what you can do is write them a note saying, the door is always open for you.
Mm.
I'm so sorry I abandoned you when you were young, but I'm a different person now. And if you can find it in your heart to spend some time with me, you might find out. But maybe you don't want to, and I have to respect your wishes.
Yeah, that's great. So how about the other perspective, that a parent reaches out to a child they abandoned, and the child, whether, I mean, like I said, we don't know the specific age, but if that child is open to attempting to develop a relationship with that parent, what advice would you have for that parent that actually does have an open door to rekindle with their child?
Yeah. Be consistent, be kind. Don't leave them hanging. Don't not show up on visitation day. I've heard terrible stories of kids sitting out on their front porch waiting for dad to come for 6 hours, and he doesn't come, and it's heartbreaking to kids.
Yeah, man, that really stinks. Our friend who asked the last two questions put another comment. They said, "Thank you for this information." So,
Oh, good.
thank you for listening and watching,
Absolutely.
and hopefully putting the information into practice, because that's what counts most, is that we put it into practice so we can reap the fruits and the benefits of putting in the hard work, because it is hard work. But the benefits are wonderful, phenomenal. You will grow that much more of a person. You'll be that much better for other people, for your friends, for your family, for a future spouse, or any relationship that you're in. The better you are, the better you are for other people too.
Right.
And if you wanna change the world, you got to start by changing yourself.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to have had a long career, and I continue to work, but I've learned a lot, and I like to share it. So I thank you for listening.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate having you here. Do you have any final comments for us, either on the topic at hand or anything therapy related?
If you want a therapist and you're in this area, you can call me, or I can give you the National Association of Social Workers, who will refer you to someone, or the Society for Clinical Social Work, which will refer you to someone. So
Very cool.
get a referral, but if you don't like them, move on.
Awesome. Well said. I'm going to end with our disclaimer. So, this show is for informational purposes only. You are completely responsible for what you do with the information presented, and myself and all of our guests cannot be held liable for any misuse or misunderstanding of the information presented. Please always consult a trained mental health professional before making any decisions regarding treatment of yourself and others. Ro, you have been phenomenal. I'm so happy to have had you on the show. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And you will definitely be back. We'll have you back on the show again. I will let you know when you're back, so I'll give you your reminders.
Okay. All righty.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. We really appreciate having you on the show.
Okay. Talk to you soon. Take care.
All right. Have a
Bye,
good night.
y'all.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone, we are going to wrap up this episode of Therapy Thursdays. Thank you for joining us. Please join us next week. at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, where we will be talking about another therapeutic topic and having another wonderful guest therapist. So please share this video on all of your social media channels. Please like the video. Please comment. Please subscribe to the channel. Please help us get this information to the world, because there are people out there who need it and may not necessarily know about this resource. So please share it with as many people as possible, because we want to bless as many people as possible. All right. So we'll see you next week. Have a good night.
Work, watch me do my